Welcome to the Success Journey Show. Let's travel together through the lives of individuals on the road to success.
Hey, what's going on, travelers? It's Ricky Venters and Marlon Madden, and we're back again for another episode of the Success Journey Show. Marlon, what's good, bro? How you doing today?
Well, I'm doing great, Rick. I'm doing great. I just doing this episode, and when people hear this, they'll probably hear our other episode. The guy talked about, our guest talked about sending out one email a day, and I just saw you're wearing the Dream Drive Discipline Diligence shirt. I'm wearing it. We need to make a day that everyone that has the shirt, or give people the opportunity to buy the shirt, and we need them to flood our timeline on it via Facebook or Instagram or what's the other one? TikTok. Just add us with the shirt. So I'm going to send out a newsletter and give us a certain date, and we're going to have everybody just who doesn't have a shirt. Hey, it's your time to buy one. Who has a shirt? I know you're trying to keep it as a souvenir because you're like, hey, when this shirt's going to be worth something one of these days, when these guys, right? And they're going to be their first iteration of the shirt. You put it up on your pedestal. You have it locked up in your closet in a golden box. We're gonna give you that opportunity to break that box for emergency and go ahead and put it on and add us with a picture. So we're gonna set that up. We'll send out a newsletter, and we'll also promote it on our next show, and then we'll get you guys to flood our timeline with these shirts, because Dream Drive Discipline Diligence, the quad Ds, is what we say. If you use that in any area of your life, professionally, spiritually, and also just in your everyday life, that you can be successful.
Sir, yes, sir. I love it, man. I love it. Make it happen. Make that happen, man. They what's been going on, man? I know we are getting into these. I mean, I say
well,
spring.
we can let the cat out the bag now, Rick. I mean, we're headed down to Atlanta. So when they hear this, we headed down to Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
We go down to Atlanta. We have a function that's down there, but at the same time, business never stops. So we're gonna stop in with the FCF, and that's fan control football. If you don't know what that is, picture Madden, but in reality. So you can actually pick the plays and do all the different stuff, and actually have the players run the play, offense and defense. So we're gonna go down there. We're partnering up with them to bring you guys some of their. You have guys like T.O. just joined there, Johnny Manziel. You have guys that were in the league, guys that are aspiring to go into the league, and this is kind of their stepping stone that they're using to get into the league. And their stories are very important. So what we're gonna do, we're partnering with them to do what we do here, show you the journey and the behind the scenes of some of these professional athletes, what they're aspiring to do and where they're trying to go with their careers.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. I as you're saying that, the episode probably gonna be released right around the time that we're down there. It's just a testament, man, to just moving, right? Someone asked me not too long ago, how do I know what the first step is? How do I know, what direction to go in? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now. I don't know, and honestly, is not an answer. It's not a generic answer for everyone, right? In terms of the specifics as to what the next step is. But what is generic is there's been something that's been tugging at your heart. There's been something that you have been yearning to do. There's been something people have been telling you about yourself. There's been situations that you have seen over and over and over again that you haven't acted on. And I say all that because it's you'll realize the steps as you just start walking. And what does that mean by starting walking? Is like you start doing and positioning yourself, listening to things, surrounding yourself with people that are either doing what you want to do or that you aspire to do. And then you start being in that community and you start seeing things just start moving. We didn't start this thing thinking about we're going to be partnering with a company like this. It wasn't even a thought really. I don't even know if it was a desire at that point, right?
Yeah.
It was just, we're going to get it. And as you keep moving, build relationships, Marlon does a phenomenal job with the staying in contact and following up and, building the relationships with a lot of our guests that comes on. And it just, one thing leads to the next. And it's like, hey, this is how we can help serve you. This is how we can help serve you. This is how we can offer value to you. And then that just opens another door. And guys, walking into it now where we have everything together, right? There's some things that we're working on and trying to get, but everything is already in step. We have a solid system that we follow
Right.
when we go and do this. Right? It's a system. We've done it. We've done it when we've gone to Renee Montgomery and we've done it when we flew out to Tito. Tito. We've done it when we gone other places and different people that we met. We've done it over and over and over again. We showed the proof of concept. And even though, and I'm gonna say here that the information that we're getting is great, and I wish that people would. You get on Instagram and you fall into that trap. You want people to share your show, and I was like, I don't even care if people share the show anymore. If you guys notice, our past guests that have come on, they don't have a strong social media presence. They don't even care.
But they're multimillionaires, close to billionaires.
Billionaires, and they don't have none of that stuff. So I'm like, so why am I working so hard trying to please a crowd on a social media platform when most people that, are really doing a lot of things, that's not where they are. And don't get me wrong, if you're on social media, I'm not bashing social media. I'm just talking about a lot of people trying to build empires off of social media. And I started one thing today. I'm going to put it on social media. I'm going to start blowing up. Like, dude, you can look at my profile compared to, I don't post anything about Success Journey. So I stopped. I was like, I'm not like, whatever. I can post, but that's not where I'm going. But the opportunities that are coming are because we stayed consistent in producing this podcast. And I don't know who was listening to be like, oh, these people are consistent every single week. So I'm going to help bring people to them on their show, partner with them, because I know that every single week they're going to release an episode.
Yeah. We have some opportunities to get some real good sponsorship. We're talking about with people that have apps. Ricky don't even know it. And let me tell you something, guys, and we're going to get to our guests. It's funny. You have to, when you're in a company or when you're working together as a team, you have to know your strength and you have to know your weaknesses. And you have to find somebody that complements you. You can't just say, I'm looking for somebody that's just like me. Because if I look for somebody that's just like me, the other side of the technical side or the other side that needs to be curated or the other side that needs to be paid attention to will get overlooked. So I know a lot of times I go build this relationship and they're asking for some stuff and I'm like, yeah, Rick. That's what I'm thinking in my head. I'm like, yeah, Rick. That I don't think that's a problem. What they're saying to me, if it was me that had to do it by myself, I'd be like, dang, I gotta go pay somebody now to go take care of all this stuff, or where do I have to go for this, where I have to go for that. But Rick is able to do that. And the funny thing is, when we build this relationship, we have Rick don't even know I've been talking to somebody. They're real excited to get us on their platform. They have an app, and they also have a radio station, a 24-hour radio station that they broadcast music, podcasts, different stuff. So I've been talking with them too. So we're doing a lot of things. And just in the 4-year span that the Success Journey Show has been around, and we've only been an LLC for a little bit over a year.
Yeah, a year. Last month was a year.
Last month was a year. We've accomplished a lot. Properties, we're looking at stuff, money in the bank, different stuff that we've been doing. And we just want to tell people that are doing the same thing that we're doing, or aspiring to, doesn't have to be success journey show. I mean, entrepreneurship or even owning something, that you just have to do, like Ricky said, be consistent.
Yeah.
Get up and do something every day. Be consistent. Don't worry about what other people on the outside are saying to you or how they're receptive to your. Nobody knew what Apple was when it was. Nobody knew nobody was looking at a Tesla when a Tesla was first, when Elon Musk was first. They're like, an electric car, how are you going to get from New York to California? Oh, that's dumb. It could only go 300, the range is only 300 miles. And so what am I going to only buy this car to drive it around town? Now look at it, right? So, and then he diversified to now satellites, Twitter, all this crazy stuff that he owned, Bezos, same thing. So don't worry about that outside noise like Rick is saying, or just looking for somebody acceptance, because it will definitely drive you away from what your actual goal is. And I'm happy that on that note, Rick and I are the same when it comes to social media and all this stuff. We'll do it, but that's not where we want to focus our effort to say, oh, I want to blow up on social media. I want somebody to know, just like you said, our people that's coming on the show are quality CEOs. And if you know, we have not solicited for anyone to come on our show for the last probably almost a year.
Yeah. And one last note I'll leave you guys with, and here's a challenge for all those that are starting new ventures. I challenge you to do it without social media. Most companies that I see that I've worked with in the past, none of them have a social media presence, and they're making a minimum of $250,000 a year in revenue, and that's not a lot. That's a small company.
Yeah,
it's a small company, but they've in business for like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. How many people do you know that got on social media and started a business and, oh, I'm going to advertise on social media, do on social media, or making $250,000? I'm talking about people that you know. I'm not talking about people that, oh yeah, there are people that do it. Oh yeah, they got this.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that. And it's sustainable, right? You know, you're building a whole team and you're offering a service. So I challenge you to, as you're exploring things that you want to do, what does it look like without social media? If I never put a post ever about what I was doing, what would that look like? How would I generate revenue? How would I generate awareness, right, of what I need? How would I find the people that I need to serve? You know, I challenge you to do that. Not to say be void of social media, and I keep feeling that we have to kind of explain ourselves, do disclaimers out. But it is what it is. You hear how you want to hear it, but it's I challenge you. Really go build something outside of it. But listen, we've been going on, we can go on and on more and more. We're actually going to be together later this week. So we probably put some things together. Oh man, it's going to be our crew is going to be together this week, man.
Yeah. So we definitely got to get, now that's going to be social media. You guys are going to see it. It's going to be Donnie D. It's going to be Rayvon. It's going to be me and Rick. And the ladies are going to be there too. But I'm just talking about the core that was there before the ladies.
Yeah, man. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. So guys, let's get to our guests. Then stay tuned. We'll be back with you in a couple seconds. All right, travelers, just as promised, we are at the favorite part of our show, where we bring on a guest to share the behind the scenes journey of their life, the ups and downs, the things that you may not have seen, the things that a lot of times, people really admire from our guests that we have come, because they're sharing the I would say the raw, the things that are not spoken of too often, things that you guys are able to connect to. And we were very, very honored to be able to bring this guest on today. And it's none other than Hart Kaminker. Hart, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor. It's our honor. Hey, why don't you start off with sharing with our guests just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'm a lawyer, immigration lawyer based in Toronto, Canada. I was born and bred and have lived all my life in Toronto. And I've been practicing for about 30 years. It's hard to believe, time really flies. And it's a practice, it's a broad-based immigration practice. So we help everybody from corporations who need workers to come and help them in Canada to asylum seekers. And that keeps the work interesting every day.
Love it, love it. So diving into your story here, when did you realize that, hey, this is an area of law that you wanted to pursue?
Okay, so it's a good question. And I guess the answer is I didn't really sort of have an epiphany to say this was the area of law that I wanted to practice in. When I graduated from law school, and then in Canada, you have to do something called articling, which is like an apprenticeship and an internship for a year after you finish law school, and then you write the bar exam. So after I'd done all of that, I was looking for work. And one of the companies, I guess, that I had been directed to by somebody that I knew, this is what they did. And so I started working for them. And then I never looked back. And, I haven't regretted it. And likely, I guess, if I didn't like it, I probably in the early years would have changed to something else. Yeah. But I didn't, because overall, it's a very rewarding experience.
Yeah. Man. Go ahead, Marlon. Yeah.
So I'm an immigrant. Right?
So I think it's one of those things, which does happen to people. You just sort of stumble into something that works out okay.
Yep. I know many people in their careers is like you go to school for something and you have an idea of what you want to do just based off of the area of study, right? But once you start getting that experience, and that experience can come just out of the blue, a relationship. I remember I got a random call for my first job, and I was like, I don't even know anything about this, but you say you needed mechanical engineers. I just graduated mechanical engineer. All right, let me go and give it a try, right? And that became my career. So, man, I understand you clearly. You walked into it, you fell in love with it, and 30 years later, it's like, wow, this was a great choice. Go ahead, Marlon. You going to say something?
No, I'm saying I'm an immigrant. I'm from the island of Jamaica, which, Toronto is a melting pot for your Caribbean folks.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And we oftentimes you see, and we're going to get back in the backstory of law and what people actually don't understand about law, and even how the difference, I don't know if you could compare the difference between going to school in America and the United States and Canada, because Canada is still North America. No, we like to put that border. but oftentimes there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to immigration. And there, more often than not, I see that there is a lot of the people that are actually native to the land usually don't know anything about the immigration process. Can you just kind of go through the immigration process for someone? Someone comes to you, or like you say, somebody wants to work in a company wants somebody to work in the United States of America. How do they go, or Canada? How do they go about getting this process done?
Okay, so a company that wants somebody to work for them, there is a process. I'm not going to say I'm familiar at all with U.S. immigration law, but I think it is a similar process where a Canadian company wants to hire a foreign worker and say, well, we need this particular worker because he's got X, Y, and Z skills. They have to be able to show that they have to go through a process to show that they've recruited in Canada, that they can't find somebody with those skills in Canada, and therefore this is why they need to hire a foreign worker. And in certain areas, that's recently has been easier to do. So certainly in the tech area, it's definitely been easier to do. I think as well, there's a facilitation on the part of the Canadian government for tech workers in the hope to be able to attract tech industry to various parts of Canada. And of course, like just as in the US now, the job market's very tight in Canada, just as it is in the United States. And so there's a shortage of workers for sure. So looking elsewhere for workers is something that companies need to do, whether that's highly skilled, like in the tech industry, or could be less skilled workers that are needed even in the service industries.
Yeah.
Mm.
Talk about that for us, Hart. We're kind of just moving here as we're having this conversation with topics that are brought up. Just looking for individuals. You mentioned, I think, the shortage of skilled individuals. And I know it must be even more difficult when you're looking. Not only is there a shortage, but then bringing people from outside the country in as well, as another layer to it. How have you kind of like mastered navigating that through these last couple of years with everything that's been going on in the world?
Okay, so definitely the last couple of years. So from March 2020, let's say until maybe towards the end of last year into the beginning of this year, when I think COVID rules, so to speak. I mean, I think they loosened up in the United States far faster than they did in Canada. But
Yes,
at a point they did. At a certain point they did. Because people wanted to get on with their lives, and obviously we have vaccines and other things to help cope with it. But I think that it was a completely different landscape. So you had all kinds of other rules, other than the rules of how am I going to hire a foreign worker. There were all other kinds of rules in place, with respect to who could come into the country, under what circumstances somebody could come into the country, whether the person needed, vaccination requirements, testing requirements, all kinds of things, that definitely complicated matters for companies hiring foreign workers. I mean, that obviously has eased somewhat in 2022, as the border restrictions have eased.
Gotcha. Have you guys seen, do the same methods apply when you're hiring from outside the country, but the individuals have the opportunity to work remote? Do you still have to look at some type of aspect in that way, even though they're physically not there, but still being a part of the organization?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. And because, the question ultimately is, this maybe is getting a little bit technical, but the question ultimately is, whether somebody needs a work permit is whether or not that person is entering the labor force in Canada. And so, when you have somebody working remotely, I think that becomes definitely a much grayer area, because for sure, you've had companies using remote workers to do work, in countries such as India and the Philippines and South Africa and other places like that, where wages are lower than they are obviously in North America, and before the pandemic. And I don't think anybody, if you're outsourcing, I believe was the word that was used. Nobody said that the work that you outsource to another country, that those people needed work permits. So I think so. It's a good question, and I think it's definitely a gray area, and it probably has opened perhaps. I think it's a very good question. Probably open questions about, whether or not somebody who's hired, from overseas, needs a work permit. And then I suppose the test might come down to, outsourcing often would be, paying a company in, the company in India or Philippines or whatever would build a company in Canada for work that they did, so that the people who are working in those other countries weren't directly on a company's payroll in Canada. That there might be a different view, I suppose, if somebody's actually on the payroll in Canada. Yeah. But again, it's I think a question that will definitely come up, I think, as because of the way things have changed over the last couple of years. Having said that, I think there still is very much a desire for people, for employers, I think, even though to at the very least go to a hybrid model, so that people are in the office at least several or a few days a week, or several days, several days a week or a few days a week, and working from home remotely. I mean, I think that really, that I think comes down to, less office space. So, and I guess what they call hoteling. So nobody has their own office.
Yeah.
They have a space to work when they get in there in the morning, but they might work somewhere else when they come in on Friday than they did on Monday.
On Monday.
Yeah. So you have a lot of people, our political arena here was getting very testy. And you had some people that were like, listen, if person X becomes the president, I'm moving north to Canada, right? We have people saying that all the time. Now, a question I want to know is, can you still keep your citizenship from America and be able to work in Canada, or is there a dual citizenship situation?
Okay, so it's so the answer to that question is, you could be an American working in Canada on a work permit. You're not a Canadian national or a resident by any stretch of the imagination. You're here temporarily. I mean, if you do ultimately become a permanent resident, you obviously maintain your citizenship of your country of nationality. It's like a green card holder, same idea.
Okay.
But if you wanted to take Canadian nationality at some point in the future, Canada does allow dual nationality. So Canada does allow you to hold more than one nationality.
Oh.
So in other words, you could be a Canadian national and a U.S. citizen. A Canadian citizen and a U.S. citizen. Canada allows that.
So what about if you're doing a job in Canada that you have to get a security clearance of a high security clearance? Will they still allow you to keep that dual citizenship, or they'll tell you, hey, you have to?
So it's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that 100% for sure, whether or not there are certain classes of jobs, which there may very well be. I guess it would probably be more at the government level, where not having another nationality might be a barrier, but I don't think so necessarily. It would be my answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is good, man. We're getting a lot of questions here, man. We're taking advantage of this time on our show, man, to get some free legal advice, legal answers here. So, but to get back to just the journey, and you said you put 30 years into this industry, into this field of practice. As you are on this side of your career, meaning there's a lot less career ahead of you than there is behind you in terms of retirement and things of that nature, and going forward. As you look at the younger lawyers coming up behind you, whether they have 20 years, 10 years, 5 years in the industry, what are some things that you're thinking through now that would have really helped you as you were going through your career, especially mid-career, 15 years, 10 years into your working career?
So it's a good question. I have to sort of think about it. I think definitely one of the I'd say one of the challenges I've had is really balancing the because I've had other lawyers work for me over the years, and I have a staff here, balancing it. I've always been the older guy, so to speak, older person. So I think that balancing that management and the practice of law, I've always found challenging. So because I really do like the practice of law, and maybe that balance is because management isn't something that I really relish, but obviously I have to do. So I think, advice with respect to being able to balance those two, to be able to sort of really dig in and obviously, as always, give my all with respect to the practice of law, but still maintain, proper management of the staff that's here. And I think that's, if I were to say, looking back over 30 years, if I've had I would say that's the biggest challenge I've had. Because I think I had advice, with respect to challenges, as I was mentored by people that I worked with before I started my own firm. I had advice certainly with respect to how, the practice of law, and about, one of the key pieces of advice being, obviously, you're there to advocate on behalf of your client to the very best of your ability, but you really have to, and especially in the area of immigration, you really have to sort of draw, build that. I don't know if it's a wall, but sort of draw that line where you can't sort of get yourself pulled in completely emotionally invested, because you'll drive yourself crazy, because you're not going to win every single case that comes through your door. Every lawyer will tell you that.
Right.
And so I think I had some good advice with respect to managing those kinds of challenges that you face as a lawyer. But I could have used more, with respect to that management. Seeing that at some point I'd go out on my own, that management as opposed to practice balance. And I would say that's the biggest challenge I've had.
Hey, you're listening to the Success Journey Show. Just a reminder, follow us on our social media at The Success Journey Show on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Also, you can check us out on our website at thesuccessjourneyshow.com. Enjoy the rest of the show.
So with that, that transition from going on your own, building your own team, like you said, and travelers, listeners around the world, I'm going to have Hart bring a little bit more color to the aspect of, managing others versus the legal side of everything. What was your best way to phrase this? Transitioning from your role as just, with the organization, with a firm, going on to your own. Now, all right, you got to build a practice, right? And you're building this practice. You have your clients. All right, well, I have a lot of clients. I need to bring in more people to help with the client load, and they bring in clients, and we build a brand on our own. Law school doesn't teach you how to be an entrepreneur in the sense of building your own business. How did you really start to embrace that entrepreneurial aspect of business on top of the managing aspect of business in order to build such a successful practice that you have today?
I think that a lot of that, like again, is I did. I think on the entrepreneurial side, as far as getting business and maintaining a flow of business, again, over the years, I had advice from various people, but obviously, speaking to as many people as you can, and go to as many, not as many, but go to networking events, making sure you get your name out there, and, giving out your card or your name to as many people as you possibly can, which I did. And then I think, as any lawyer will tell you, one good result can bring you, and I think this is a key, and I've imparted it to younger lawyers that have worked for me. One good result can bring 2, 3, or 4 or 5 other files. So it's really ultimately, hopefully, about the quality of work that you do that brings you more work. And I think in legal fields, that's one of the best ways to get more work is, in this area where I'm dealing primarily, for the most part, with individuals rather than companies.
Yeah.
I do have a few companies, but you are word of mouth is a very good way to get business. So, but I think as well, just getting out there and just putting your name out there wherever you have the opportunity to do so, and so just that people know that you're out there and that you're available to help them if necessary.
Yeah. No, it's funny because as you're saying that, I was at a conversation today about networking and the power of getting out there and letting people know, like pretty much setting yourself up as a thought leader or the expert in this space, right? Because there's always people are going to need services that we offer, especially that you offer. And it's just about, you can't be just sitting behind your desk just waiting for people to come knock on your door, right?
No.
It doesn't work that way. I think it was in one movie, I can't remember what it was, and 2 guys started up a law practice and they just sat there in their office with their sign on the door, and it was like, man, we don't have any clients. What's going on?
Yeah.
So getting that, it sounds like, and you said this a couple of times, mentorship was greatly beneficial to you. When did you really embrace the value of mentorship? Is something that you just you embraced even before being in your career, and then just kind of spilled over into then? Or is it somewhere where someone kind of sat you down and said, hey, listen, I see you have a great potential, let me help you?
Well, I think, well, first of all, I guess the people that I worked with when I first started out, I mean, I think, there were two guys, and I think they were good mentors, I think, in a few ways. One, because they both had very different styles. So I was able to, draw on both styles. And, one of the, and one definitely had a style that was very different than the one that I ultimately developed. And I think a lot of that had to do with my demeanor and my personality. But, I think, a good piece of advice that person gave me was that, look, you've got to adopt a style that you feel comfortable with, and there can be many different styles, all of which can be equally effective. And so you don't have to sort of copycat somebody, if you don't feel comfortable copycatting them, copycatting them, for the purpose of trying to build skills. So, that was a good piece of advice. But I think as well, one of the things that I also realized, and I think this links back to sort of getting your name out there, is really being involved in trying to be involved either in professional organizations like law organizations, which I have been, or community organizations, which I also have been, because I think you can also learn from people who aren't lawyers, but who are in business, or maybe other professionals, accountants, doctors, engineers, what have you. Just from people who are older than you, and I guess you have had more life experience than you, that even if they're not practicing, either they might own a business, they might be an accountant, they might be an engineer, they might be a physician, whatever they might be.
Yeah.
But you could see them operating, let's say, within a board of a nonprofit organization, where perhaps they're engaging in some kind of management duties by being on that board. Yeah. You can get a lot from them. So I think over the 30 plus years, like, I've drawn on people, lawyers that I've mentored, that I worked with, whether that was lawyers that I worked directly with. When I first started on my own, I rented office space from other lawyers, other law firms. So, so these weren't lawyers that I was connected with, other than I was a tenant in their space. I learned from them. So, there are lots of places, I think, where you can draw on to learn about life, and about applying that information or those skills to your profession and to your career.
Man, yeah. I wanna I'm not switching gears, but I wanna stay on the vein of the entrepreneurial spirit. Excuse me. With that entrepreneurial spirit, two questions. Have you diversified in any way, meaning even in law, but diversified your portfolio, meaning, maybe went into real estate, or even practice, open another firm practicing whatever in law? Just diversified your portfolio. And what is your idea of retirement?
Retirement. Well, that's a good question, because so I haven't really diversified. No, I think what I've always tried to do, like immigration and immigration citizenship only, and for a few reasons. One, just because, like, all areas of law are so heavily legislated and regulated these days, it's difficult. And this, I think, goes back really to a financial question, because it becomes difficult to know so much and then to do it in a way that's cost effective. So, certainly some of the things that I do today, I did much slower when I first started out, because I'm much better at it, or, I can see things much faster now than I would have when I first started out. And I think, but I think it's, it comes ultimately down to a question of cost, and, and how much you can know, and how much time you can spend to know something. So that's why I've really just focused in the immigration citizenship area. Having said that, I've always practiced in all areas, which I don't think is true. Well, it is not true for many people, or some people, maybe is a better way to put it, to practice in this area, who really either just do the court, don't do like litigation, like asylum work or trying to prevent people's deportations and other things like that, which I do, but also do the corporate side. And, in that way, it's kept it more interesting, I think, for me. I mean, as far as retirement, it's sort of a timely question, because I think if any, it's 30 years in this past February, or this year anyway, 2022, that I first started to practice. And I think if anything, we talked about the last 2 years a few moments ago. I think if anything, that sort of, turned my mind to the question, because it was definitely difficult to practice in those 2 years, whether that was just from the difficulties, purely speaking, the difficulties with respect to bringing people into the country, the barriers that were put in place. But I think just, period, with all the changes that occurred and, what have you. And, I think that, I definitely turn my mind to it. And so my mind is like, and as part of that, definitely, I think I've turned my mind more towards planning for that day. And you have to plan for it like well in advance. I've realized, like, you can't sort of wake up and say, well, at the end of this year, I'm going to call it quits. I think, from a financial point of view, you really got to like plan well in advance, and sort of have, and I'm at that point in my career where I really have to turn my mind to that question. And I have. And so the idea would be to, like I'm a guy that's gone flat out for 30 years. I'm probably going to go flat out for maybe another 10 years or so. And then that would take me up to 40 plus, and then not ever sort of get out of it completely, but be in a position where I, chop down my overhead and, still practice, but still have the flexibility to say, like, I'm living up in Toronto, Canada, and I want to go down to Florida for a couple of months in January and February to get away from the snow and cold, and have the flexibility to be able to do that. Look, I mean, I think the reality is that if anything, the pandemic has allowed us that flexibility. Like, we can work, literally work from anywhere.
Correct. That's a good point. And I know you guys were pretty locked down. Even more stringent than we were here in the States. But did you guys turn to a whole virtual, with clients, not as much in-person activities with them? What was that like? Was that a new adoption to the office, as in, wow, we can really, make this a standard of practice?
Well, definitely it is. And so, like, for a period of time, it was purely virtual. I mean, occasionally clients had to come in to drop off documents and other things like that. I mean, look, the reality is that some clients, if they can, would prefer to meet with you in person. And I think, and definitely, I've had experiences, I would say, over the last couple of years. I can think of a couple off the top of my head. I think where, in the virtual world, I think you still, whether you can still miss some nuances, which are important, especially on the asylum side of the equation, that you really only get, I think, when you meet with people in person. And so I think there is some advantage to that. So now it's a mix. Like, look, Toronto's a big place, and some of my clients are, a good hour away from my office, with traffic and everything, which is bad here in Toronto. And so, they definitely prefer just to meet with me virtually rather than the car and travel 1 hour to my office and 1 hour back to where they're living. Whereas others who are living more in the city, like where I am, not in the suburban areas, they're happy to get on the subway and get down to my office, because we're right on the subway, and meet with me in person. So I would say I'm definitely seeing more people in person now than I did. I would say over the last couple of months, and I guess in people's minds, look, the restrictions have lifted, so there's no reason why can't I come to you in person, really, is the question, if I need to. And I think now that's a difficult question to say, no, you can't do that.
Okay. Hey, you said subway. I'm gonna put your head on the chopping block, or put you against Montreal. Is the subway system in Toronto? I don't know if you've ever been up to Montreal. But is the subway system in Toronto as great as it is in Montreal?
Well, no, it's definitely lacking for the city of its size. I mean, they're busy building new lines, but of course, it's taken them like a decade to put this line on the ground. So, as these government things usually go. But so there definitely many more lines planned. But for the size of the city, it's woefully inadequate. Definitely.
Okay. Yeah, Montreal. I'm telling you, I've been all over the world, and Montreal's subway system is one of the best, if not the best, that I've
like the greater Toronto area probably has about 5 to 6. Like if you take not the city and then the suburbs surrounding it, I mean it's probably about 5 or 6 million people. So it's a substantial city, which doesn't have. It's a substantial metropolitan area, which doesn't have that definitely does not have the transit infrastructure that it ought to have. I mean, they're busy trying to improve it, but it's taking a long time to do it.
Yeah.
So, Hart, as you are looking at, even the rest of this year, what are some things that are immediate for you in terms of opportunities for growth, like some of your next steps as we're coming out of the tail end of this COVID, and I mean, it's ramping back up in some areas now. So I don't know if we're ever come to a tail end or this is just a new way of life. But as we are entering this new way of life and going into this new phase, what are some things that are top of mind for you as a person, as the business, as some next steps that you want to kind of work on?
Well, I would say, what we've tried to do, and we've certainly taken steps in that regard, is to try to rationalize. Like we've definitely tried to cut down on overhead, and definitely the pandemic has given us an opportunity to do that. So smaller office space, what have you. But I think one of the areas, where if a worker shortage is going to continue, and I think it likely is, just from the way the demographics work in Canada, the way demographics are working in Canada, that both with respect to an aging population and a lower birth rate, that I think looking at helping companies attract work, looking at attracting more corporate work would certainly be one area that I would look at trying to expand. I think on the litigation side, on the personal side, we're fairly well developed. And certainly looking to develop the corporate side more is something that we'd be looking to do.
Love it. One question that we always ask all of our guests is, and I kind of had you answer it a little bit in a different way a little earlier, but I want you to answer it this way directly for us, is, if you can go back to that young, energetic man that, was putting out applications to try to find where you wanted to be. And this is the young Hart, right? If you had like 60 seconds to talk with him as he was going through that process, knowing what you know now, how would you, when you pull him aside, what would you say to him?
That's a good question. I guess my answer to that question would be, whatever opportunity presents itself, just try to make the absolute most of it. I mean, and what I tell my children who are young adults now is, who are both coming to the end of their university education, so they'll be in the workforce looking for jobs shortly. I would say, and I think it's, like you really just got to get your foot in the door, and once you get in the door, like everybody's equal, because there's lots of things, law school. So obviously there's Harvard and there's Stanford and there's, whatever, there's Yale and what have you. And, and you have something similar here in Canada. And so, a lot of it might be like, well, I'm competing against a person from the University of Toronto, a person from McGill or whatever, well-known universities in Canada, and you might go to a law school, a smaller school. Really, it's about getting your foot in the door. Because once your foot in the door, everybody's equal, right? Because the supervisor is looking at everybody the same and looking at the work that you do. And they're looking at your work not based upon the school you came from, they're just looking at your work. And so I think, taking, once you get the foot in the door and just take advantage of that opportunity and try to make the best of it.
So I know that that's usually kind of like one of our closing questions. Man, you just opened up a question I have
I
that
know.
is
Yeah.
very, so I have there's three important things I need to know. But first of all, the first thing I want to talk about is the schooling in Canada, right? Because, you could go to McGill, you could go to Concordia, you could go to University of Toronto. I don't know if Montreal and Toronto have the same setup in terms of how minimal the fees are when you go to school. It's the same. It's pretty much the same.
For undergraduate, yes. For professional schools, no. Professional schools in Canada, they're definitely not as expensive as they are in the United States. But law school at U of T, I think, would run you like $35,000 a year or something like that now. So
Okay.
I'm not sure about McGill. I mean, I know McGill for Quebec residents is cheap. For non-Quebec residents, a little, definitely less than you'd pay in the US, but they pay more. But the fees, still, if you're comparing it to schools in the US, it's much cheaper.
Okay. And how hard would it be to transition from, like, I went to school, McGill, and now I'm trying to transition to the United States? Is it just I go take the bar, or do I have to take a course in the States to solidify that
Yes.
I know the information?
Yeah, so the answer to that question is you just have to write the bar exam, because we're common law, we're the same kind of law, it's the same kind of jurisdiction. So you just have to write it. And not many, but some students who go to Canadian law universities apply for jobs in New York, out in the Silicon Valley, what have you, Palo Alto, whatever, and they just have to write the bar exam, California, New York, and I think, and what have you. And some lawyers who are even working in Canada do it so that they're able to perhaps service U.S. clients.
Yeah. Okay, and then my last one. So you built this empire, and you're saying that your kids are about to go finishing up going into the workforce.
Correct.
How do you feel? Did you want someone to come along and take over, even though they don't really have to be a lawyer to take over what you're doing? They just have to be probably in a managerial position. Being a lawyer would be an additive. But were you trying to groom one of your child to say, hey, become a lawyer, take over the practice, and keep it going?
No, I never did that. I was sort of I always said, like, just to do what they want and what interested them. I mean, one is in sciences, so it's definitely not taking over. But I think that but no, I definitely didn't. I just encouraged them to do what they were interested in, was supportive of it. So there was never, you should become a lawyer, you should do this, and and then you should come help me out. If it works out that way at some point in the future, great. But it wasn't something that I pushed on them.
Okay.
I like that perspective too. It's because you had some people that would push it, like, this is a family business, all these hours, and you got to go to school, and this is what you're going to become. You're going to follow in my footsteps. You're going to take over. This is going to be yours one day, right? And but then you have a lot of, there's pros and cons to it. The cons are greatly, hey, you're pushing them into something that they really don't enjoy, they really don't like. It's not them, their makeup. And I'm happy to hear you said that, hey, I want you to find something that really gets you going, that really gets you excited, because this is what you're going to be doing for the next 30 years, right? 40 years, right?
Yeah.
So is there, before we let you go, I want to make sure that we give an opportunity for anyone that's listening, especially that is dealing with the circumstances in this area around immigration and concerning Canada, getting to Canada. How can they get in contact with you in order to secure your services to help them?
So I think the best way is they can go to our website, which is www.kaminkerlaw.com. And through there, they'll be able to reach me.
Love it.
Love it. And can you tell the immigrants that are even, they come to Canada and they overstayed their visa, so some of them are scared to come in because they're scared somebody will turn them in. So, tell them you're there to help them more than we want to tell them you're there to help them to secure their stay and not to be afraid of Hart.
100%. I'm there to help them.
There you go. Love it. Love it. Well, Hart, it's been a pleasure meeting you, a pleasure talking with you, to hear your story and just where you are, your aspirations, what got you there, and just what you're doing today, every single day. And we want to say thank you because what you're doing is helping out thousands of people. And it's such an important role in this world that is needed. So thank you so much for what you're doing every single day. And thank you again for coming on a Success Journey show. For all of our travelers that are listening and listeners that are listening, we want to thank you guys for tuning in again for another week. Hey, this show is here because of you. If it was just me and Marlon, we can just pick up the phone and talk to Hart real quick and just have a conversation, right? But this show is here for you because we want to get this information out to you because we know that some of you are either dealing with issues that we bring up here or services that are needed that we address here, or just have the aspirations to, hey, you don't know what you're going to do today or tomorrow, and you didn't realize that, hey, that next phone call of just your aunt and your uncle or a friend or a neighbor that says, hey, why don't you come and come work with me, may turn into a 30-year career. Plus, as Hart continues on in his firm as the same. So thank you so much for tuning in. And we will be back with you guys next week at the same time on a Success Journey show. Everyone have a good one.
All right, one love.
You've been listening to the Success Journey Show, where your dreams, drive, determination, and diligence are the foundation to success. For more information, check out thesuccessjourneyshow.com. The Journey Squad is here helping you to your destination.